Hey, everybody, we have great podcasts over on whatsoundsawesome.com or wherever you find fine free podcasts. But you know what the best podcasts are? New podcasts, fresh, unopened Christmas morning podcasts. And right now we got two that you should go unwrap right now. We have the Uncensored Pharmacist, where Miranda and Rachel, actual pharmacists in the real world, are bringing you the straight dope here on the podcast to help you navigate the pharmacy and all of your needs as you try to navigate the world of health, trying to find what works best for you and your family. That's the Uncensored Pharmacist podcast with Miranda and Rachel. And also we have Movies Are Us, brought to you by the Thank the Light crew, talking about all the great movies that have been brought to us through play. Toys, video games, board games, all the great toys that we used to and continue to play with that have been brought to us in the live action world or animated of Hollywood. That's Movies Are Us, the Uncensored Pharmacist podcast, and all the other great shows brought to you by We Mixed It over at the Sounds Awesome Network at whatsoundsawesome.com. Find them there or wherever you find fine free podcasts. Now enjoy this podcast.
Hello? 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 If you can hear this, it's not too late. I return to warn you. This is Time Pop, a podcast that discusses time travel and pop culture. There are spoilers. I've seen the future, and nothing is sacred to these folks. Your past, present, and future are sure to be ruined. Even if you could go back in time, as I have, you will never forget what you are about to hear. You've been warned. This is Time Pop.
Welcome, chrononauts, as we guide you through the experience of time travel using pop culture as our space cancer. We will be your constants. I am Des.
I'm Scott. This
is
time. Pop, 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 pop. Shh. Like the special effects, that was all in house. The echo. Because that echo, is that from a past or is it from a parallel universe?
You tell me, Scott.
I don't know. Let's talk about this film. I want to say.
Let's talk about.
Yeah.
Hold on. Oh, of course. Now my fucking thing won't load. Jesus. We are going to talk about Synchronicity 2015 rated R. Very soft R, people. Very soft R. 1 hour and 41 minutes. Starring and directed by, some cool people, but no. Oh, well, we do have the great, the wonderful Michael Ironside. Is it Michael Ironside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's such a. This is a low budget film, and they try to get there's someone like their nod to something sci-fi in, and Michael Ironside is who they get. Who I'm watching this film with Ari, and of course, no clue that this guy's even a guy. And he's a pretty obscure deep cut. In fact, off the top of my head, I can't name too many things that he was in, except what sticks out for me is he was in the series V, which was pretty epic in the 80s with your aliens and whatnot. He was like the tough, like demolitions weapons guy.
Yeah.
But he's been in a million things.
He's been in I can't, for whatever reason, the IMDb version I'm looking at here. I don't know why the tablet IMDb is garbage. But I can't get a count on how many movies he's done. I mean, I would be happy. We always talk about doing a podcast just based on an actor. Like we could.
Yeah, on a random character actor.
Holy shit. I mean, he's Jester in.
He was in Top Gun.
Yeah, he was Jester in Top Gun.
Total Recall. By the way, his real name is Frederick Reginald Ironside. Just call him Michael, please.
What's his count? Can you get a movie count? I can't find his actor.
I'm looking at we're using Scanners. Okay. An A-Team episode. Big deal. V. That's right. Extreme Prejudice. Watchers. Total Recall. Highlander 2.
There we go. This is the number I'm looking for. 277 actor credits with 8 in production. This guy is a boss.
He's a beast. Free Willy. Major Pain, Starship Troopers, The Perfect Storm, The Machinist, Terminator Salvation. Oh my God, what an interesting career.
This guy is...
He was not in RoboCop, but he should have been.
How? He was not in any of the RoboCops?
It seems like he should be in RoboCop. He should be one of the bad guys in that would be right up his alley to be one of those douchebags. Anyway, they got Michael Ironside.
How many episodes of the A-Team was he in?
I think just one.
Oh, anyway, stay tuned for our Michael Ironside podcast coming to you sooner than later.
Wait, I got a fun fact. Because I found, was Michael Ironside in RoboCop? This is super random. He was offered the role, but he did not want to be involved with another special effects laden film or play a psychopath after working on Extreme Prejudice in 1987. So you and I are not the only ones to think this man should be in RoboCop.
Yeah.
I love how long this tangent is going on for.
We're gonna play a game called Oh, he's in the next Karate Kid? That's not even Karate Kid 2. There's just I've never even heard of this movie. There's a Karate Kid 1, a Karate Kid 2, a Karate Kid. Oh, this is the one with what's her name?
Yeah.
That's Hilary Swank. I never realized it was called The Next Karate.
Yeah,
God, was he Mr. Miyagi? I hope Michael Ironside.
not. Let's hope not.
Anyways, and there are a lot of other people in it, and I did a little. I'm not gonna, since we've just spent 5 minutes on Ironside. But like these people, these are kind of the types of movies they do. Not necessarily time travel movies, but like I noticed a lot of overlapping credits. Like the three main guys have definitely done a lot of work together. But I want to start this podcast off by just saying this, Scott.
Yeah.
This is why we do Time Pop.
Yeah.
Because it's not a great movie, but there's some good time travel stuff in it. And if we weren't 100 episodes deep, we would have never gotten here. And this is why we do all the hard work.
Yeah. And this felt good, right? I agree. This is like, for some reason for me, this felt old school for us. Like it's a low budget, but it's interesting and it's got some stuff to chew on. And I enjoyed it. Like it was enough I had to do some research like that night to figure out what the hell happened. And that's, we love that stuff. I watched it with Ari. She did not like it. She slept through the third quarter of it. And as I was researching it later, and she was just like, yeah, I just want to watch it and enjoy it. I was like, yeah, but my brain is like, I need to know. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't have that anymore.
We killed Ari.
We burned her out.
Oh, no.
It's like we've seen all forms of one or another, but like, it was really interesting. This was low budget, but like what you can do if you're smart with a low budget. And
I mean, they obviously found one brick building to shoot around everything. The hotel room, the lab was in the basement of this building. The apartment was on the top floor of this building.
Yeah. But so, I mean, I really loved it because I am a huge Blade Runner fan.
Oh, God.
They advertise this as like somewhere between Blade Runner and Dark City. I love both of those films. And like they are clearly paying homage to Blade Runner. The soundtrack is very Vangelis. And there's always like, it's always dark. And there's always glowing lights coming in from the windows and the glare, like the light glare. And I fucking love it. I love it.
Dude, they were obviously getting in combustion engine cars. And then when they would drive away, you'd hear a...
Yeah, let's talk about this. So the buildings they use are like very futuristic and bent and like they're doing the Blade Runner life. But there is no indication this is not in the future. It is present day. But they're just trying to make it like it's this future vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a scary future. Like, they don't get into it, but this is a scary future. Like, this is a future where, again, kind of like 1984-ish, like, there are helicopters and spotlights constantly strafing the city, looking for what I assume are criminals that are so abundant that any shine of a spotlight could nab you and arrest.
I mean, look, and I'm not going to fault, this guy just loves Blade Runner. Here's what's going on. He loves Blade Runner. He's like, I'm going to do a time travel film. I'm going to put it through a Blade Runner filter, and the music and the look and the nights and the lights, even though there's no reason, it's present day, it's in a city, but I just think it's cool. And unfortunately, I fucking fall for it.
I'm going to send Scott a text right now. So, and I just want to hear his unbridled reaction to this being a shared universe with something else.
Wait, what is that?
It's a fucking bat signal.
Oh, I did see that.
It's a fucking bat signal.
I did see that in it. I actually totally noticed that when I watched it.
At some point, people, they pan up. He's driving. And they pan up, and there's a bunch of helicopters shining their lights. There's a bunch of other high buildings with their spotlights on it, and then you just see it's not enough that they can get sued.
It looks like a hawk.
But
The light hawk in the sky.
obvious.
Yeah, this guy hasn't done a lot of films. This was probably his first one out of there, and it's a love letter to
But
certain
once they
films.
get into the idea, we'll do a deep dive in this in a second, folks. But while we're just hovering around the subject, once they really dig deep into the alternate universe theory, the whole bat signal, I'm like, all right, I'm actually okay with that. Like, if there's infinite universes with infinite possibilities, then there's a chance that one of them has Batman in it.
So we've seen enough of these films. You know, a lot of the time travel films, something happens, then the mind fuck happens, and like you got to always take it up a notch. There's usually a surprise ending, or it's just the layers of understanding what's going on. And this one did the like, it's time travel, it's a mind fuck, and then finally at the end they do the how do we take it up a notch? Actually, it's parallel universes, and all of a sudden you're okay.
And not even it is, but maybe like they.
I stand well. I mean, I don't know. I've researched this, and that is what happened. I mean, that's we can by the ending now we can infer that is the reality. He goes to a world where it's a different name, and the other version of him doesn't exist. It's not exact.
Oh yeah,
It's parallel universe. That was proven to be a thing. Also, the way that he found different. There's also subtle differences that you start picking up. I mean, when you look back at it,
the bartender. That's the only one. I wish they had shown
the journal. The journal. Once it was in her house, once it was in his pocket. It shows up in different places. It has different things. There's like subtle differences. The fact that he died in that one bed in one reality, but another in the other one. He's coming from another world. Anyway, it's what's great about that is it does eliminate paradoxes. When you're just saying you don't time travel, you go to an alternate, you're jumping across, you can't go back and forth. Well, you can go to another reality at a time, whatever. You can jump time in a different dimension. It eliminates certain paradoxes. You're not worried about grandfather stuff. You can't do what made you. You're going to a whole other situation.
I don't know though if he basically is killing himself by occupying the same DNA.
In this world, in their rules, you can't have two of the same being exist. I actually like that. I think that makes sense. You know, the same matter existing in the same timeline. It kind of feels like it would throw everything off. So I like that. It's like Mother Nature or Mother Time's way of dealing with something that can't exist. You can't have two Desmonds fucking running around. With two copies? It just goes against.
No, you can't. Now, do you think that it was a proximity thing? Do you think if one of them had fucked off into the Amazon forest that they probably could have survived?
It's a good question. It seems like in the end they're saying eventually you will die.
Okay.
But the more proximity you are to yourself, the sooner it'll happen, the more pain that you're in.
I guess that makes sense because if you're talking to the same people, you're causing more and more paradox.
Yeah.
Therefore, making Mother Nature be like, we gotta fucking get rid of one of you because you're fucking everything up.
Yeah.
But if you're just on all other sides of the globe, not interacting with even the same people, nonetheless yourself,
you're still out there in the same reality, which goes against. I like a way of correcting paradox. Yeah.
And because you mentioned that, you know, when you're working with alternate universes, you're not dealing with paradox, but that is kind of the crux of this movie is the paradox of having two people. So there is a paradox.
Sure, you're right.
issue.
There's like a temporary one. I just like that it gets corrected. You know, that there's all these time travel films where like you can try to change this, but it's still going to happen in this other way. Like the ones where like the timeline is happening, or like you get erased from existence if you change your original. Like I just like the idea that like this universe can exist when you break these like rules, and it's like it's always happened, but I didn't do it this way. Like the fabric of time and space wouldn't allow it to happen. So I like that logic that it's self-correcting.
So we're going to have to go through this movie just to try to track everybody. So
by the way, I want to suggest to you, if you have the time, if you have not done so, This Is Barry did do this film.
Oh.
And he does have a chart.
What?
I know you love the charts.
What's it ranked?
I didn't see what it was ranked. I just looked it up because I want an explanation. And our other plug to This Is Barry.
Oh.
The guy is legit. He gets all our love and respect. Not only does he review every time travel film, not does he make giant 100 lists, not only does he break it up into subgenres, but like he does long blogs explaining what happened. He makes the charts to like break down who's in what timeline. My friend Barry, I don't know how you have the time, but bless your little heart. You are an inspiration to us all.
And that's not all he does. Like, This Is Barry is like,
This is his second job. Yeah.
And this is one corner of This Is Barry. I think he does this for other genres and stuff too, doesn't he?
Totally. Yeah. We're lucky to watch one film a week and talk about it.
I know.
That takes everything. I don't know why you're finding it, but yeah, this film is one that it's interesting that it's almost not that we're watching so much time travel if you think of like Back to the Future and being out of time. It's one of those films where you're just like dealing with the repercussions of time travel, right? Because he just goes back a week. We're not dealing with like, oh, I'm in a different time and they talk different. It's 1800.
Totally. Will my money even work here?
Yeah. It's just there's two of him, and it's, one of those where you're filling in the blanks like a butterfly effect, right? There's when you first watch the movie, there's like little parts you miss, and then they go back. And we've seen so many movies like that where you watch half of it at the first half, and then the second half starts explaining what was actually going on. You watch the other timelines and the other lives, and you're on the journey with them. I mean, even the Robert Downey Jr. commercial, right, was kind of like that.
Which everyone out there, I can't believe we haven't gotten into this yet, but we got a fantastic letter from the person who wrote that commercial. And he was actually on set helping them, make sure everything was in place and being part of the continuity, basically. And he may have solved our big mystery in that movie. I will rewatch V50 along with this gentleman's notes and see if we solve the paradox of the keys. And we will put that conversation somewhere on this feed.
But yeah, if you go on the journey with this one person, but you're missing out on the full picture of the timeline, all the versions, where you're going to go when you go to the future, and then you come back, and then you see all the things. What was the one at the hotel? Is that 13? The one at the hotel where like
41.
He then comes back. 41. Yeah.
The guy who goes in the hole in the hotel.
No, I was thinking about the other one, the one where it's just like him, the wife, and the one other guy.
Oh, yes.
Think of that too, like the journey you go on. You're just from the beginning, you're the first version of them and you don't know the full story. And then you end up being the guy that goes through all those timelines. By the end of the film, you see the whole picture. It's a cool way to turn time travel into a mystery, an unraveling of a mystery.
I love that. Yeah, they do. Again, like we've talked about it a lot recently, but like, how we're able to get to movies like this because of Back to the Future, because of Interstellar, because there's already language. Because in this one, he's like, no. This is my future. This is someone's past, and I may have gone back in time, but from where I stand, I am moving forward, and this is my present and my future. The fact that I go back in time doesn't reboot my entire memory system, which is just so cool. So we start off there. There's a lot. I mean, obviously, A, this is a big deal, and B, one of the scientists is a Three Stooges. They spend so much.
He's a Rain Man. He's a Rain Man. They spend so much time practicing on this machine. When we start the movie, apparently they have spent 3 days running this drill so that when Michael Ironside shows up, they can fucking get it right. Well, yeah. So anyway, he has a time travel device. It requires an energy source that only one man has access to. I don't know. That's poor planning. It's like if you need was it uranium in Back to the Future?
Yeah, which is the same thing in here.
If you need something nuclear or you need this thing that it's just poor planning.
Well, it's not. I mean, I get it that you would need a pretty serious energy source to create what would be necessary to create a wormhole in the fucking universe. But
so science-wise, right? We should discuss that. So what their science is they create half of a wormhole during the one run, right? And then they're time traveling just this wormhole. Then like a week later, they're supposed to do the other half, and they send something through, and they open it up now. And in a week, he's like, we're going to send it back through, and then that's how it's going to prove it.
And they're doing this. The reason this gets so fucked up is they have one energy source, whatever you want to call it. They have an energy source.
What did he call it? They had an acronym. I forget. It was like they never
MRD.
MRD.
MRD. So is what they're going to do is they're going to open this half of the wormhole in front of Michael Ironside. He's going to be so impressed that then he will gift them another MRD so they can open the second half of the wormhole.
It's very assuming because you're just opening up. You're assuming this all works. And then in the future, we will definitely do
Well, it's a pyramid scheme. That's what it is. Now, and we don't get into this, but now, so they open up the second wormhole because apparently they don't know what end of the wormhole they're opening. So what happens when you open the third wormhole? Does it give you access to the previous two, or can you only leapfrog back one at a time?
Oh, that's a good point.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Maybe you did. Maybe you might have found a fault there. We'll get into that later, I guess, when we get through that part. But yeah, you may have found a loophole. All right. So anyway, they do the first experiment. It seemed like things went wrong, and I think the guy stormed out, right?
Yeah, because nothing showed up.
But then eventually they found something did show up. It was the flower, the dahlia.
Yeah, which it had to have been sitting there. How did they not notice that?
That's a really good point.
I
think it looked like an explosion and they assumed it didn't work, which is not very scientific.
Because the cat passed out. So they just got focused on our main character being passed out. He's like, oh, all this machine did was knock out the scientist. I'm supposedly going to put all of my...
No one else, just him? Yeah.
Well, it makes... And there's no reason... That's another thing, too. This whole movie might be bullshit because... They set up really hard how tired and amphetamized he is.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, if you're going to have your main character not having slept for 72 hours and popping methamphetamines and caffeine, is this a narrator we can trust?
He does mention, he's like, if we do the calculations incorrectly, it might destroy time and space as we know it. Yeah. That's a lot of responsibility on your back for an experiment.
Maybe everyone take a nap.
Yeah.
And we'll do this in the morning. Like, what do we want? Time travel. When do we want it? It's irrelevant.
Yep. Before he passes out, he does see a person running on the screen. He sees a person running kind of like from the wormhole.
Well, he doesn't really notice. He doesn't.
Well, he sees it, but he passes out.
We see it. He sees it when he's looking at the replay.
And of course, I saw it immediately. I called a good portion of this film.
Yeah.
Like, you and I have seen enough where it's like, okay, that's him. Some future of himself is going to be here. Maybe he's sabotaging it because it goes evil or whatever. But, clearly.
This movie was really good at leaving the egg. There wasn't a lot. I think they could have done more. But like leaving the eggs in the first time around. Like sometimes when you're watching the last third of one of these movies, you're like, I don't think he was in the background the first time I saw this. But this one, like I noticed him like running up the steps behind him.
Yeah.
In the first 20 minutes, you see him run up there, and then you see Michael Ironside's following up there, and you're like, okay, all right.
So he gets up, he thinks it failed. Michael Ironside ran out, the investor. He runs outside. He sees what a weird interaction. There's a female that they're focusing on trying to make her very cute.
Yeah.
I think her acting maybe wasn't so great. But
she's a good-looking woman, but she is
right. But but they're milking that. They're milking.
Yeah, she is not sell the universe hot, which I don't know if anyone is worth the whole universe.
But they really hold a lot of stares. The cameraman is really trying to soak her in. And anyway, he has an interaction with her. And she's talking a little weird to him. And clearly, there's been as time travel enthusiasts, we're like, okay, there's a thing here, but we don't know yet. Let's just go for the ride. And then I think he runs up to Michael Ironside in the car. And it seems like Michael Ironside is like, I'm not going to invest with you, friend.
Everyone's reacting to him like, why are we having this conversation again? So, and again, like Scott says, because we've been here before, we know okay, in the third act, we're going to see why all of these people are reacting to him like they've already reacted to him. So this character, okay, so
when was it that he demanded the 49%? That's later, right?
So when he goes back to Michael Ironside's, when he's like, it worked. This thing came through. We found it. And so then Michael Ironside's like, well, it works. I definitely want a piece of this, which is weird that it was either A, I'm going to buy your whole company, or B, we're never going to talk again.
Right. Because he's got leverage because the dude needs the product for it that only this guy has. And then once he realizes about the dahlia, he's like, well, the Dahlia is the thing that we own. So if you're going to want that to put it through to make this successful, you're going to need me to have
And
it.
also, you fucked my girlfriend.
Right.
So now I just hate you. so
So we'll get into the girl thing. So he hangs out with her. Everything's very weird. They're acting like it's such a weird start and like they're falling for each other seemingly very quickly.
Yeah.
She's very teasing and he hangs out at her bedroom that night and then he gets a phone call from his buddy and his buddy's like, hey, this thing actually did work. They didn't think it worked. He's like, it did work and you need to come back here and also don't trust that lady. And then rude as a motherfucker, he's with her. It's like they're about to get it on. He just walks the fuck out the apartment.
Walks out. Like
doesn't say like, hey, I need to go. Like you could still be polite about it.
Like you're a fucking time travel. You know some weird shit is going on. You should probably you should A, listen to your friend, and B, not burn this bridge to the ground.
Walks out. They're about to get it on, and he's like, see ya. He's getting headaches, which are weird, right?
But I knew what that was.
Right.
Like, I mean, at first I thought it was just time travel, but you know how we know it's not time travel? Because no blood came out of his nose.
Yeah.
Like, whenever it's just the time travel that's making your brain hurt, the blood comes out of your ear or your nose.
Top time travel tropes.
Yeah. So
it's a little weird when he's with his buddies. They're acting kind of funny.
Yeah.
They said to meet in one room, they're in another. There's clearly things we're missing.
And they keep saying like, but I thought you were wherever. I thought we just discussed this and you said you were going to A.
But they point out the Dahlia, and that's important.
Yeah.
And I think he remembered seeing the Dahlia at the lady's house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, and then
he ends up going back to her at some point.
Yeah.
Even with the warning, and he ends up like sleeping with her. And then does he take the Dahlia at that point? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's right. He just takes it.
So like, did he sleep with her just to use her? Not in this time. No.
Well, he still thinks that she came through with the Dahlia. He doesn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. He thinks she's like
yeah. Because I don't know if it's by now yet. We're getting this mixed up. But at some point, he starts reading her notes. And it's like, she knows a fucking lot about time travel. So I think she's using Ironsides to get to me, to get to my time machine.
He's very suspicious at this point.
Yeah. And has every reason to be from his point of view.
So I think at that point he leaves. She did apparently tell Ironside about the Dahlia. And then when he talks to Ironside, this is the point where he's like, so in the future, you send that back. In the past, you need me. That is my property. I want like 99% of your company.
And we're jumping around a little bit, but by this point, a future version of him and her have called Michael Ironsides and told him to fuck off. So I think that's what we don't understand. When we first see this scene, we're like, wow, Michael Ironsides just took a huge leap between 49% and I'm going to take everything you own. And I think that's where the conversation we see later on, when our main character says, if you love me, then you'll tell Ironsides to fuck off. And she goes, all right, hey.
There's suggestions in there. We don't know yet that she has a thing with Ironside. I don't even remember.
There's no suggestion. Confirmed. No, by now we know that they're fucking.
Okay.
Like, I mean, maybe I'm off by 5 minutes.
I forgot when he got particularly betrayed. I think it's when he saw.
I think it's between these scene in when we see it the first time, we see him take the Dahlia to Michael Ironside, and he says, look, this came through. I need to send it back. I need you to give me the thing so we can send it through so we can finish this wormhole thing. And what we don't see yet is her calling Ironside saying, fuck you. I'm going to date this guy now. And that's why Ironside is like, I will take the 49% plus the 50%, and you can take your 1% and go fuck yourself. And he's like,
I remember when he comes back to like page her and there's like another man there and he's blocking the screen. Of course, I'm like, oh my God, that's him from the future.
Yeah.
But like she covers for it.
He's not blocking the screen. Their proximity with each other is causing static.
Right. Then there's another time where he goes by and there's a guy in there and he assumes it's Ironside.
Because they both touch the pen pad at the same time, him from the apartment and him from the basement, and they shock each other. So now he's like, well, fuck. She's definitely in the middle of this, whatever this is. So then he takes the Dahlia back to her and basically says, do the right thing. And I guess she does. Like, does he think she's going to? Well, no, because Ironside's asked to.
He's like over. He's like, you're doing your thing with him, whatever. He's like, I can't bring this, but you do it. You do the right thing. What's confusing about that is, did he agree to the 99%? Or did he? They make it seem like he did agree to it, which is why he said, you don't control me later on. But then if he's making her do it, he didn't agree to it, but she still shows up with Ironside with the Dahlia. That's confusing to me.
If he thinks she needs the time machine to complete whatever she's into, which he doesn't know yet, then maybe he's like, well, she will convince him under any circumstance because she's the Time Lord here. So she'll figure it out.
Yeah. We're saying this very disjointedly. There's a lot that happens.
So
like when they went to dinner and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, the dinner.
That's right after they met. Yeah, where she just helps convince Ironside.
That's right. That's right, because that
was right after he met her. They went to dinner with Michael Ironside and his wife, and he's like trying to say this mission wasn't failed.
Go to dinner with his mistress. And yeah, that was fucking weird. Jumping around again. What's the deal with the fake out trial run when it's just the 3 guys? Well, it's actually 4 guys because there's 2. Jesus, what's his fucking...
You mean later on?
Yeah, I know I'm jumping.
It's not a fake out. It goes wrong. We'll get there.
Okay.
So he tells her, do the right thing. Now it's the week later. She shows up with Ironside. There's all kinds of coded talk. He's clearly mad at her. She's like all snugly up on Ironside. And she's like, says something to the effect of like, you'll understand this now. Later, not now. He's all bitter that she used him. They have this one night together. It's all very weird, but somehow he's very connected and very obsessed.
But at least a different version of himself watched the whole thing.
So as they're doing the experiment at the last second, he's like, you may own the Dahlias, but you can't own me. And he runs into the time machine to go back, I think, to prevent it from happening. Now he thinks, I see the whole picture. They're working together. They're using me. I'm going to go back and warn everybody and stop it from happening. So then he goes back to a week prior. Of course, that's what has always happened.
Yeah.
He's the guy that brought the Dahlia back with him. I'm trying to think what we see differently. Oh, he runs out after the experiment. He talks to her. Now we see the first time he interacted with her, which is why she talks so strangely to him when, well, let's call him Prime, right? Is his name John? John Prime?
Yeah, John Prime.
They refer John Prime as the first version. Now we're in John 101, I guess. And then John 101, I think, also talked to like Ironside at some point. And now we see all the other bits. And
yeah, he talks to her and Ironside, I think.
Yeah. He talks to his friends. He lets his friends know.
And that's why they end up going to dinner. Because at first the dinner is weird, but this is because he's talked to Jim 2, and Jim 2's like, it fucking works. And then...
Right. So he came back. He's telling them, he proves to them that it's him. They're like getting underneath all this science. And then eventually he told him to prove it, to call his other version of himself. And that's when it's the phone call of him saying, hey, this actually worked. Get back here. Also, don't trust her. Because at this point, he does not trust her. Then they get back and like he's hiding in the bathroom while the other version of himself shows up and we're doing all that fun shit. It explains why everything was a little bit off. You know, we're getting that now. And now he's just trying to like stop everything from happening. He does go to Abby. This time his intention is to use her, right? Like, I think to figure out the full story, he like tries to expose her. He's like, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
But you find out that she was like this science writer.
Does he dumps out the coasters.
Yeah. Because he had a talk with her at a place where she wrote down something he said on a coaster. And there's a bunch of them.
So is the coasters one version of the diary?
The coaster throws me off a little bit. Because I thought it looked like she had like a box full of coasters, which almost looked like she's done this a million times. But later on, you're finding out this is not the case. She was actually pretty sincere and that she heard about this guy. She did sleep with Ironside to help fund her career as a scientist / science writer, but like heard about him, wrote a story about him, but then grew to love the man. I mean, she hung out with him for 3 hours. I always have a hard time in like Somewhere in Time or Rebel Without a Cause or any movie where it's like they've hung out for 2 or 3 hours. They're like, I love this person. I really know them inside and out. We had an afternoon together.
Do you get a sense that she might be the Time Lord and like
No.
she might come back like every 10 years she goes through a wormhole and kills herself?
I read up on this. I did the research. That's not what they're suggesting. They're suggesting that she was actually really sincere.
But she does have so she's just been following his career for a long time.
Yeah. And so she made a story supposing stuff, but then actually got to know him. But then this book also gets passed around in different timelines. So that's where that gets weird. It seemed like there was a bunch of coasters. It kind of goes against everything else unless...
I think the coasters might be notebook...
Maybe they weren't all written on.
What?
Maybe they weren't all written on.
I think they were. They were definitely all different. Like I was with you. I thought that every coaster was going to be identical for a minute.
That's what it seemed like when he doesn't trust her.
But it wasn't. Like they show enough of the coasters to show that they're all different notes. I think that might be notebook number 1 before one of the 3 or 4 notebooks gets... Because it's all from the notebook, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe she but she's only... Yeah, because I feel
it's a weird inconsistency that wasn't explained.
Have to work. So she just goes to this bar and researches every day and writes down her thoughts on the coasters and then comes home, puts them in a shoebox and then translates it.
And when he was with her, she did write down a quote that he had said.
Yes.
Anyway, it says in the Wikipedia is he reads her story, but it's not fully accurate and it's also unfinished. Like when he just straight up I think he sleeps with her first and then he's like, I don't trust you.
Oh, yeah.
She deals with all this really well. These two different, you just did this last night, but today you're saying this. But she's like, fine, read the book, motherfucker. And then he goes and he meets her at the bar.
The book or the notebook, right?
The notebook, sorry,
Yeah.
He's still suspicious, but he's fucking deeply in love with her and he's very jealous.
Yeah, and his friends are even just you could solve, all the mysteries of the universe and you're just going to use this to get laid. And he's like, yep.
Yeah.
One more time, Pop. Check out patreon.com/soundsawesome. Right now for $3, you can get 10 exclusive podcasts. That is not $3 per podcast, people. That is $3 gets you the whole library over on patreon.com/soundsawesome.
So he's clearly becoming obsessed with her now. He's getting weaker. He's getting sicker and sicker as time progresses. Eventually, he kind of coughs up blood and is almost passing out in front of her. She calls the boys and they come get him, right?
Yeah.
And then they're all talking about it now. I think they talk about that you can't... his friend had suggested the parallel universe idea and they're like, this is I think you jumped into a parallel universe, time in a parallel universe.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't exist in the same time and you can't get that close to yourself. And so they're trying to save the guy.
And at one point, do they basically just say so do I have to kill him?
Yeah, they're like, why don't you just kill yourself? That'll solve it. He's like, no, why should I?
Yeah.
Then he's like, maybe you should drive far away.
But then he wants to kill the other guy so he can have her, because now he's looking at the two versions of himself as fighting for the same life. And so one of them is willing to kill the other one in order to live happily ever after. So
eventually they decide, he's dying. I think first he's going to run away. And then I think he decides not to. So then he decides they're going to do an unscheduled wormhole to send himself to the past to prevent the research from ever being stolen.
That's right.
How did they get the extra? Did she steal one for him? How did they get the WRD or whatever for this? That was never explained either. They make it I'll just jump again.
I think when he goes back to when they still have one before.
No, he's got this is now. Oh, you're right. Wait, he's back in time. This is before the second wormhole jump.
Yeah.
So I guess that was the other end. I guess he thought he was going to go back again and to that opening and destroy it. He was going to beat out the second wormhole, the other opening. That's what's going on. Because you were saying how does he go without the end being open? He was going to go back and just destroy everything.
Right, because we never really see when he gets the second MRD. If they make a big deal of him and her showing up with the Dahlia.
He had already agreed to it at that point. Whatever, he must have agreed to the 99% and gotten it.
I guess you're right. That's why he shows up with her. Oh, but then.
Anyway, you were asking about this, so now we're here.
But wait.
A mistake is made.
I might be.
The guy turned to the right. That is what happened. Remember, he keeps this guy who's a Rain Man, this buddy, doesn't know his left from his right.
Yes.
And they set that up. They set it up for this moment because that paper falls. And he's like, I don't know. And they're like, you know it. Which, by the way, I wouldn't put that trust in like something so important. You know it. And you actually see he goes right a little bit.
Yeah.
I was confused when it first happened too, because he runs out and the friend's talking to him and you're like, is he in the past? I actually thought for a moment he went to the future. Like I was really confused. It did not work in that time. It did not work.
Something worked though. It just didn't.
No, it didn't work that time because the guy went to the right. His buddy's like, well, let me take you out to dinner because you're dying. He goes out to dinner at the Grand Hotel. He talks to Abby. I think she's like crying and she's like, he knows what's going on. And she says pretty much, well, I'm going to go back and sleep with this guy so I can get you another one of these so I can save your life. So at least some version of you can go on and exist so that we had our time together so that this happens. And he's like, no, I don't want you to do that. And she's like, I love you, so I'm going to do it. And then this is where he goes to the Grand Hotel and the guy's like, he drives and the guy's like, you've already checked in here. And he's like, oh, okay, of course I have. Can I have my key again? What room am I in again? And he goes and there's a dead version of himself.
So that's only on timeline 3?
So I'm trying to remember. Oh, I remember what happens. He's bummed out.
I just want everyone out there to know I am so fucking confused. I watched this movie less than 24 hours ago. I have it on.
When you're done, read the Barry thing. Read the This Is Barry thing.
Yeah.
Or even the Wikipedia thing.
I'm looking at the chart right now, trying to. There's a lot of question marks on this chart, which I don't blame Barry for, but like this movie is way more like kind of.
So we know about the parallel universe. We can assume this dead guy in a bed is him from another timeline that came here. Some similar things have happened, a little bit different. He goes to another hotel. I'm trying to remember if this is when they started pointing out the like parallel universe and they start pointing out the differences. Like the Grand Hotel looked like this once, looked like this. The bartender looked like this. He looked like this. Like it's really hitting him the parallel universe. I think it hits him when he sees the other dead version of himself in the bed and they start pointing out, well, the hotel once looked like this and now it looked like this. The bartenders were different. The book was different. All these little things. He gets himself.
Is it always Beta Jim that dies in the timeline? Or is that not that simple?
I'm not sure if it's that simple. I'm not sure I have the brain capacity for that yet.
Okay.
Well, let's finish it up. He goes back. He checks into a hotel that is conveniently right across from Abby's place. He's able to get the room that's right across from Abby's place,
Yeah.
which conveniently has open windows. He has open
Which
windows.
is an apartment. There's this high-rise hotel right across, not even across the street, across a small alleyway.
Yeah.
To this
He,
high-rise apartment.
He is watching her because he's obsessed, and why not? And what he sees is that's when she is sleeping with Ironside. He can see that she hates it. He did it for her. All along, she was actually being pretty legit, and she did fall in love with him.
What does he give her? Is this when he gives her the Dahlia back?
Yeah, I think so. She sees him looking in the window, runs out, goes to the hotel, finds the room. You know, I think they all forgive each other. I forgot what she thinks she's going to do. Oh, she's about to go bring the Dahlia back to that second wormhole thing to make sure it happens, to make sure that this guy exists. She doesn't know he's definitely going to die. So she's trying to keep him alive. That's why she slept with Bozo. That's why she's now going to take the Dahlia and go back to experiment 2, so this has happened all along. We just never saw this part. They do experiment number 2. That's where he runs back into the machine. After that, she leaves. She comes back to this hotel and he has now died. But when she went back to experiment 2, she whispers something in his ear this time and puts the book in his pocket.
Yes.
And he goes to a timeline. Later on, now we know there are some timelines where the book appeared and times where it didn't. He's in a new timeline. This guy, he's just walking up to her at a bar. She slightly recognizes him. She's like, oh, you look like this guy. He has a different name. It was like Jim Bain now.
Yeah, Bean or...
Yeah, she's like, you look like just like him. They're like, oh, tell me about it. He's a scientist. He had this thing with time travel, but he died. The lab had a big explosion. And he's like, oh, well, that sounds awful. And then he's kind of flirting with her and he's staying. And now you're realizing that he went to a timeline that the other version of himself has died. So now he can remain and he can be here and he can have a relationship with her and all that stuff. They're not going to use his technology against him, and happy ending. Does that help?
Well done, Scott. Holy shit. It doesn't...
Hey, I only could say this because I researched the fuck out of it that night after I saw it.
Thank you, Scott. I hadn't got a chance. I thought I watched it pretty closely. I was like, I'll just use my knowledge of sometimes I have to rush through these movies. Sometimes I got shit going on. But yesterday I was able to get comfortable and just sit here, crank the volume up. And what's funny is this timeline is actually confusing me more because I thought it was much more simple than that. But this really gets like Primer-esque as far as like, oh, it's just simple. Just he goes back a little bit. But then like there's so many like.
If you look up Synchronicity movie explain on Google, a lot will pop up.
If you
there's like a Reddit, there's a This Is Barry.
If you go to This Is Barry and see how many jumps lead to question marks.
Ooh. Barry gave it a 2.6. Barry was not crazy about this.
Yeah.
How do we find out where it's ranked? That's a whole different list, I guess. I want to know where it is in Barry's list.
Oh, here, it should say, it doesn't put it?
No, you have to find Barry's list. Anyway, when I read Barry's explanation, on some level, it almost makes me a little more confused. That chart really throws me off, but I think he's great. Barry relates this to Primer and Avengers Endgame. We're talking about when you travel, you are making an alternate timeline, just like Avengers, right? And then all the changes you make, just make another split. That original timeline goes on. And that's great. That, again, it prevents some paradoxes.
But it's not, he's like, because the way Barry explains it, and I'm just going to trust Barry at this point. Like, I'm assuming he didn't just skim through this movie. I'm guessing he watched.
He even says the importance of the failed experiment. I didn't get that when I first saw this. I was like, did that fail? Did he go to the future? I realized later he failed, and then reading about Barry.
Okay, is that where in timeline, are you looking at the
I'm looking where in Barry's where it says the importance of the failed experiment. He says it results in multiple pathways for the wormhole and crisscross of multiple gyms because some people it was a mistake and some it wasn't.
Oh, so that kind of comes back to my theory of what happens when you open a third wormhole. So since he was, so the
one we're following, it did fail.
It was not a failure. It just wasn't.
No, it didn't. The guy went to the right. It didn't work. He stayed in that same timeline.
But if you're saying that it caused some crisscrosses and some...
They're just saying it's an opportunity, that this is a plot point that for other worlds, whatever. That's something that Barry just thinks.
So is that the one where if you look at Barry's graph, he goes from timeline 102 to timeline 103 straight down? Is that what that is implicating? Is the quote-unquote failed?
I'm not sure if they're talking about the other Barry that died in the bed, if that's timeline 103. I'm not going to understand this right now in this podcast.
Oh, you're right. It does say, because right after that it says Jim 101 died. So he jumps straight across. Why does he jump straight across?
Oh, the Barry...
The Jim.
The Jim, sorry. That she whispers and gives the book to, he goes to the new timeline, which is 201. That's Jim 103. That's the one that Abby whispers, gives him the book.
Yep.
He comes in a timeline where the other version of him dies. And this is where the film continues into this positive ending. But all the other timelines are fucked.
Well, because what's going to happen when because the film ends... Oh, after the jump. I'm just going to say, like, what happens when his friends call him? Because the movie ends a half hour after it begins, if that. So what are his two friends doing? Are they running the experiment without him? Are they going to be calling him soon saying, dude, get back to the lab?
It's hard to know what happens in his timeline or if someone else jumps into his timeline when someone else jumps out.
Well, if someone jumps.
Or if timelines go on with...
Yeah, I guess if there's infinite timelines, then there's one where they don't do the experiment. It's all just theory. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to read this out loud. Just to happy ending. With John 201 dead, Jim 103 is the only consciousness left in this timeline, 201. So he's not dying. Jim 103 meets Abby 201, who is seeing him for the first time. Abby 201 is a big fan of John 201 and his work and is writing a science fiction novel based on him. She observes that Jim 103 resembles John Bain and tells him that John 201 died in a lab accident. It's clear that Jim 103 already knows this, and he offers Abby 201 a drink. The end tells us that there would be many timelines where Jim was born John and dies in a lab accident. In all these universes, if a Jim arrives, he would be safe. On the other hand, if Jim arrives in a timeline where Jim is alive, his fate is to die alone. So depending on which timeline Jim lands in, he either dies. So you know what's going to happen is...
Another Jim might come in this timeline?
Yep. Yep.
Or John.
Yep.
Possible.
Holy shit. This is why we time pop, baby. Thank you for listening to Time Pop. Want more Time Pop? Check out patreon.com/soundsawesome. That's patreon.com/soundsawesome. Need a new way to listen to Time Pop, Thank the Light, and Movies Are Us? We are now on YouTube at What Sounds Awesome. That is YouTube at What Sounds Awesome. Follow us at Time Pop Pod. That is time_pop_pod on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Send questions, comments, and recommendations to timepoppod@gmail.com. That is timepoppod@gmail.com. Need more podcasts to listen to while you wait for the next episode of Time Pop? You can find our lineup at whatsoundsawesome.com. That's whatsoundsawesome.com. Or you can find these podcasts wherever you find fine, free podcasts. We have Movies Are Us, All the Answers, Truth Not Trends, Thank the Light, That Fitness Couple, and the Uncensored Pharmacist podcast. That is health and fitness, comedy, spirituality, health and medicine, movies, the Wheel of Time, and just good conversation all the way around. Get all your needs met at whatsoundsawesome.com or wherever you find fine, free podcasts.
This was fun, man. We haven't had one of these in a while. It was it had a good trailer.
Yeah.
We had a few other indie movies that we did that were like a little bit lackluster for us. And this gave us some stuff to chew on. And stylistically, it was great. No major actors, but it was fun. This was what we like to do.
This was very chewy. So let's just say again, I got to make some leaps here in order to ask this question. We know how this works. We know it's wormholes to alternate timelines. We know it's not time traveling within our own universe. What are you gonna walk through this wormhole? This
Fuck no. Fuck no. After this movie, I see no benefit of going back 1 week to deal with all this nonsense. This was no joy of time travel. Like I said, this is the result of time travel. This is not, I'm going to the 1950s. I'm going to the future. I'm in the 60s. This is just a week. This is just getting caught up in your mess.
Yeah, because your only option at this point is to continue living these 5 days, because you could probably, even if you come in contact with your alpha in the new timeline, you're probably going to survive 5 days, but then you have to, like, it's one thing to have a 5-day wormhole that's always open. And let's just say if you get in it on one end, you go back 5 days. If you get in on the other end, you go forward 5 days. But this wormhole exists in these two instances in time. And in theory, you can do it later, but like you're constantly,
So everyone's only coming out, they only came in and out of those two openings.
Like you kind of, again, I come back to Primer. So what you'd have to do is open the wormhole, not do anything, write down some stock market moves. 5 days later, get in it, and then come back and play this stock market. But then you'd also have to primer it, and you'd probably have to strangle yourself every time you came through. Yeah, if you have an endlessly open wormhole, this is a pretty sweet deal. But to just have an instantaneous moment, 2 moments in time that you can connect. And again, we have no idea what's going to happen when you open the 3rd and 4th wormhole. Like, are you just going to open another 2-ended wormhole? Or every time you open a wormhole, are you going to complicate the first one? And this gets real messy real fast. I probably do it out of curiosity, and then I probably end up destroying all space and time trying to put it all back together again.
There you go. That's the spirit.
That's the science. All about coulda, not shoulda. That's what I'm talking about. What time is it, Scott?
This is a tough one. I'm not going to say it's like one of the all-time greats, but we've had our new movie dips have been disappointing. There was what was the one with Dexter in it? The Shadow of the Moon.
Oh, yeah.
And the one the week before after that.
Yeah.
They were both like, eh. So it makes me think more fondly of this. Maybe it doesn't seem like a 7 o'clock. Does that seem about right?
I don't know.
It's hard to not know what I gave other things because I need that for reference points.
Yeah, that's why I like this so much.
Let's call it 7:50. Is it 7:15, 7:30? Yeah, it deserves some love. I'm going to give it a 7:30.
You ready for this, Scott?
Yeah.
9:45.
Whoa.
I love this movie.
All right, I want to change mine to 7:45.
What's that?
I want to change it to 7:45.
You're going to 7:45? Okay. All right, we can do that. As always, I'm going to say that am excited to watch this movie again. I won't because I never do. But like,
I would watch this again, yeah.
I would too, but I'm like looking at the fact that I haven't rewatched. I've only rewatched like 3 movies we've ever done ever, just because, part of this podcast is just getting on to the next and watching it. And like, I know I keep saying it, but like, there's a lot of those first season movies. As I've been, everyone out there, I hope you've been paying attention to our social media, because I am posting, baby. I'm posting to social media. Time Pop Pod at wherever the fuck you find Time Pop Pod stuff. And I'm putting sound bites out there, so it's kind of fun. But anyways, it's just as I'm going through our entire catalog and putting up little sound bites, just like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Like this, again, I've been saying this a lot lately, but this really scratched my paradox itch. And I need to rewatch that and FAQ and a bunch of others before I come back and rewatch this one already. But yeah, this is really cool. Again, this is why we do the podcast, so I can watch it and think I totally got it, at least most of it, and then have a chat with Scott and realize I missed it all. I don't know what happened. And then Barry comes in and throws a hand grenade in the mix and really just makes me wonder what I even watched and what I'm talking about. So yeah, Time Pop.
We popped it.
We did. Until next time, I'm Desmond McNeese.
And I'm Scott Lifton. See you in the future.
See you in Timeline Beta.
Yep. Or maybe I'll be dead in a bed.
You're all a bunch of betas. Are you going to be dead because you strangled yourself, or you just slowly sucked the life out of your alternate self? You got to answer that, Scott.
Yeah, time sickness.
Time cancer. Oh, you know what? Let me double check my notes here. Oh yeah, that was the thing we did. The lighter was a thing that the
Oh yeah, there was some things that he brought from different timelines. He gave to her, she gave to him. There's some grandfather paradoxes.
Yeah, the notebook, the lighter, the Dahlia, and Jim himself.
The lighter was hers, that she said someone who didn't have time for me, and then she gave it to him, but it had been given to her. So that's like a loop, but this film doesn't. Well, I guess it can work that way with.
There is a couple things I wish there would have been some more. I wish when he realized that he was in an alternate universe, I wish there had been more flashes of different things. Like they were in a bunch of cars, like the driver could have changed, the type of car could have changed. Shoes, maybe, like we saw a bunch of weird shots of shoes for no reason, and then we realized at the end it's because, in one universe everyone's wearing Converse, in another universe everyone's wearing Nikes. Oh, and as always, time travel equals love, love equals time travel. Like that's the only thing I've learned from over 100 episodes of this podcast. Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com